Coming up tonight on YCN News, medical marijuana license applications in New Hampshire. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders talks about his presidential run, the media, and the economy. And police have issued a warrant for a man in connection with a murder in Windsor, Vermont. For more news, weather, and sports, it's time for YCN News, your local view.
Now, your daily digest of the Dartmouth Lake Sunapee region, southern Vermont, and Windsor County. News, sports, weather, and all that is happening in our area. The news on YCN, your local view.
Good evening. It's Tuesday, June 9th. I'm Laura James. Welcome to YCN News. The man police continue to search for regarding a murder in Windsor, Vermont yesterday morning is now charged by law enforcement with second-degree homicide. Windsor County Superior Court Judge Teresa DeMuro issued an arrest warrant for 27-year-old Jason Kendall late last night. Kendall is charged by police in the fatal shooting of his ex-girlfriend and the mother of his child, Molly Helland. Helland of Windsor was 22 years old. Kendall may be in western Massachusetts based on police reports of the car in which he fled after the shooting. It will be another few months before New Hampshire state health officials determine the locations of 4 approved medical marijuana dispensaries. 2 years ago, the state legislature approved a bill allowing for the use of marijuana for medical purposes. Lawmakers placed the responsibility for administering the program within the New Hampshire Department of Health and Human Services. These 4 centers may grow, produce, and sell marijuana. As an alternate medical treatment, the locations of the maximum 4 dispensaries will be determined by several factors. Chief among the factors is the residents and elected officials of a town or city must have the chance to give input about a dispensary being located in that particular municipality. Registration ID cards for medical providers and for patients prescribed therapeutic cannabis will be issued by the Department of Health and Human Services. U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders was in Keene this past weekend, and it seems a lot of residents wanted to hear what he had to say.
U.S. Senator Bernie Sanders drew an audience of nearly 1,000 supporters Saturday afternoon in what was his first visit to Cheshire County since declaring his candidacy for president. The Vermont Independent spoke to a standing room only audience at the Keene Recreation Center, drawing constant cheers and nods of approval for his views on topics ranging from income inequality to Social Security. The former socialist mayor of Burlington, Vermont, hopes to be a thorn in the side of Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton, and drew perhaps the loudest reaction from the audience when he suggested he'd beat the former Secretary of State in New Hampshire's first of the nation primary.
So let me tell you a secret. We're going to win New Hampshire.
The 74-year-old New York native wasted little time getting to the issues and focused a lot of attention on what he called an immoral and unsustainable economy. The senator blamed large corporations for the imbalance by stashing funds overseas to avoid paying taxes.
When we talk about income and wealth inequality, what I think many of you believe, that it is no longer acceptable for the billionaires and the millionaires of this country and for large multinational corporations to avoid paying their fair share of profits, of their fair share of taxes. They're making the profits, now they're paying the taxes on those profits. These large corporations are stashing their profits in the Cayman Islands and in other tax havens. We are losing as a nation over $100 billion a year. In any given year, there are major profitable corporations who make billions of dollars who pay zero in taxes.
The nation's longest-serving independent senator took dozens of questions from the crowd, touching on topics from healthcare to inept coverage of the issues by national media.
So you have a media, number one, the national media, not necessarily local media, but the national media, which is corporately owned, which of course has its agenda. And then what you also have is a culture now in media, which, as I mentioned earlier, treats politics not as how we deal with the issues facing our country. That's what politics is about. That's what democracy is about. People may disagree, but let's lay the issues out on the table and have that discussion.
The senator was slated to make stops in Iowa this week, home to the ever-important Iowa caucus. before returning to the Granite State later this month.
And we will indeed bring you coverage of Bernie Sanders' next visit to New Hampshire as his presidential bid continues. Coming up next on YCN News, an update on the underage drinking party in Sunapee, New Hampshire. We'll hear more from Ohio Governor John Kasich's visit to the Granite State this past weekend. And Mike Pizzone lets us know if the rain continues. Plus sports and events all around the region when YCN News returns.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Laura James. Yesterday, we brought you the story of Ohio Governor John Kasich's visit to New Hampshire back on June 5th. And today we have a further look into his visit to the Lebanon Elks Lodge and what he spoke about. Our John O'Connor explains.
Friday night in Lebanon, New Hampshire, Governor John Kasich spoke to the Grafton County Republicans' First of the Nation primary dinner. Governor Kasich spoke on a number of issues, really starting with his childhood, growing up, going to Ohio State, the values that he learned there, the values that he carried to Washington, his reforms in Washington, going into the private sector, and then going back into the politics, being the governor of Ohio. Prior to the speech, YCN News asked the governor a couple of questions, focusing on what he's hearing on the campaign trail in New Hampshire and what he would do if he were president.
Well, I was chairman of the Budget Committee when we balanced the budget. You're not going to do that overnight, but it's not just balancing the budget. It's also making sure we reduce regulations, we give businesses incentives to reinvest in their company, and in terms of national security, it goes hand in hand with reforming the Pentagon, which has a tendency to be bureaucratic, over-regulated, and waste money.
The governor was asked what it would take for him to run.
Can I win? That's basically it.
The governor's speech was centered around introducing himself, and John Kasich used stories to paint the picture of who he is as a person and who he is as a politician.
Well, I won that election in 1982. I was the only challenger in America to defeat an incumbent Democrat in 1982, and the next thing I know, I'm in Washington. I'm going to work with the President of the United States. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm 30.
The governor focused on the best program for fighting poverty is creating jobs.
You know the best program to fight poverty? Did you hear me say this before? No, that was good. It's a job.
Governor Kasich really focused on his achievements in Ohio. He talked about how he's turned the state around economically.
For financial services and energy and IT and computer and cloud computing. I mean, it's a whole, it's medical devices. It's a whole different Ohio. I like to call it the new Ohio.
Governor Kasich also focused on the need for political reform.
Here's what I do know. Washington is bloated. It's too heavy. It doesn't function well, and Americans are losing great confidence in the ability of not just that government, but all government to work well. United, together, everybody rising, everybody have a chance. I'll see you the next time. Thank you.
For YCN News, I'm John O'Connor on the campaign trail, reporting from Lebanon, New Hampshire.
All right, John, YCN brings you the latest campaign 2016 coverage on air and online. You can see any of our past stories on our YouTube page. Well, in a story we reported yesterday about an underage drinking party in Sunapee, New Hampshire, an arrest has been made. Hong Kong resident Rami Kim was released on $2,500 personal recognizance. That, according to Sunapee Police Chief David Cahill. Kim turned herself in to police yesterday. She's represented by an attorney. 74 underage young men and women were taken into protective custody yesterday morning. 23 of that group of private high school graduates will face additional charges. Kim is charged by police with facilitating the underage alcohol house party, a misdemeanor. An August 4th date in Newport District Court has been set for Kim. Well, coming up next on YCN News, formerly it was called PSNH, now Eversource Energy. Our Elizabeth Tarazio has an interview with Martin Murray. That's coming up when YCN News continues.
The YCN News continues in a moment.
Welcome back to YCN News. I'm Mike Pizzone. Well, it was a dark one out there today with all those showers off and on throughout the day, and it looks like we're in for a little more rain tonight before things finally begin to clear up. There's a 60% chance for thunderstorms before 9 this evening. Those showers will likely continue right through about midnight. Skies will clear up in time for mid-morning tomorrow, though, making for mostly sunny skies and a high of 78 degrees. Tomorrow night comes with a slight chance of showers, with temperatures bottoming out at about 58 degrees. We'll climb right back up into the 80s Thursday, with mostly sunny skies before falling to around 57 Thursday evening. Now let's take a look at our community calendar to see what's happening in the region. The New London Barn Playhouse will open its 83rd season Thursday with its presentation of the 58th Annual Straw Hat Review at 7:30 p.m., which will introduce the 2015 Barneys. Call the number on the screen to purchase tickets or find out more. The Claremont Farmers Market will be held Thursday from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Broad Street Park in Claremont, New Hampshire. Local vendors will be on hand to offer meats, eggs, produce, and much more. The event will be held rain or shine and feature live music. The Upper Valley Max Users Group will meet Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. at Whimsical Computers on Main Street in Windsor, Vermont. The group is open to anyone interested in Apple or Macintosh products. Visit whimsical.org for more information. Well, it's been quite the spring for area teams so far, with the Hanover girls tennis team having already claimed the Division II title and the school's girls lacrosse team competing for a championship tonight down in Exeter. On the baseball and softball fields, we have 5 area teams hoping for wins in their respective semifinal matchups coming up to extend their seasons just a little longer. So with that said, let's take a look at our updated brackets. First on the docket will be the 3rd-ranked Springfield softball team in its quest to return to the championship game for the first time since 2011. To do that, the Cosmos hope to utilize home field advantage in today's semifinal against the 7th-seeded Randolph team that upset number 2 Fairhaven in the quarterfinals. Springfield will need another strong outing in the circle from ace pitcher Jade Twombly and even more success at the plate from the likes of Chelsea McAllister if it hopes to claim its 2nd title in 5 years. Also in Vermont, the 6th-ranked Windsor softball team will have to wait another day for its semifinal against 2nd-seeded Richford, as rain today prevented the team from making the 2+ hour trek north to the Canadian border. When the Yellow Jackets do make the trip tomorrow, they'll need more big things from senior hurler Ashley Bly and sluggers Haley Wood and Emily Anderson to earn their first trip to the title game since 2012. And coach Phil Hathorn's team is no stranger to upsets, as they knocked off 3rd-seeded Bellows Falls in the quarterfinals to earn its ticket to the Final Four. Over in New Hampshire, the top-ranked Sunapee softball team will play in its 2nd semifinal in as many years tomorrow night when it takes on 5th-seeded Portsmouth Christian. The Lakers are eager to avenge last year's loss in the Final Four and advance to the championship game for the first time since 1975. Coach Bonnie Cruz will be relying on the likes of Katie Frederick and Faith Larpenter to keep up their success in the circle, and even more offense from Lexi Hamilton, who belted a pair of home runs in the team's quarterfinal win over Derryfield. On the baseball field, 4th-ranked Bellows Falls will have a tough task in its mission to earn a trip to the finals for the first time since 1999, as they're set to take on top-ranked Mill River this evening. The Terriers won't have to look far for a scouting report for their semifinal opponents, as the teams met twice during the regular season, with BF falling by 3 runs and 4 runs respectively. Coach Bob Lockerby's team has proven it has more than enough depth on the mound with Chris Armstrong, Kobe Howe, and Zach Streeter, meaning offense will be the team's biggest hurdle this evening. Last but not least are the defending Division IV champs over in Sunapee. And while the 4th-ranked Lakers are a much different team this year, with a handful of newcomers and not a single senior on its roster, I wouldn't bet against the winner of 3 of the past 4 titles. Junior ace Ben Robinson will be asked to cool off the hot bats of top-ranked Colebrook, and classmates Cole Cruz and Will Austin will need to continue their recent success from the plate that's helped the team outscore opponents 28-4 over the first 2 rounds. That does it for YCN Sports. I'm Mike Pizzone.
Okay, Mike. Well, we all know the Common Man restaurants. There's a bunch of them. I don't know if you've been to them, but you probably have been. Coming up next, YCN's Capital Connections host John O'Connor continues his conversation with Alex Ray. He's the owner of the Common Man family of restaurants. Part 2 of that interview coming up when YCN News continues.
The YCN News continues in a moment.